was going to ask you about initially inside linebacker. So if you don't have David, obviously you lose a very good run defender, among other things. What is Anthony Walker's skill set now compared to what David gives you? What do you feel you'd be getting differently if it is Anthony instead?
Yeah, have the utmost confidence in Anthony and Duke Riley, for that matter. And we know he brings a wealth of experience to the field and to our team. I think the thing Anthony provides back there is he has a big picture understanding of what we're trying to do defensively. So, and Dave he tries to do the same thing, but he tries to very much he's a calming presence out there because he knows everybody's jobs. And if there's ever a point when anybody has some indecision or unclarity, he gets rid of that real quick. So excited to see him out there and play if David can't go.
We have a question about Jalen Ramsey and DK Metcalf. It looked like Jalen was shadowing Metcalf on the touchdown. It looked like a miscommunication in coverage. On the 21-yard one, DK lined up across from Kendall Fuller, and it looked like on the video that Jalen Ramsey was looking at the sideline kind of like, is this what we want to do?
Yeah.
And I know it was a broken play, but was that a miscommunication on that one?
It wasn't miscommunication. It was really just the forced tempo. So that just made it hard for them to run and switch sides and get on those same matchups. So hats off to them for forcing that issue. But hey, we made the quarterback blink. We got to get there and get him on the ground. It was a broken play. They made a good play. Like, hats off to them.
There's a big discrepancy in the numbers, the defensive numbers between first half and second half. I mean, pretty big. And anything you could point your finger to?
Yeah, trying to find that answer, right? We got to find a way to start faster. So how do you do that? The only way I know how to do that is to continue to approach each day with purpose and intensity, right? I tell guys, like, the NFL is an improvement league, right? There is no staying the same in this league. So ultimately, it just requires 11 guys to be disciplined on every single play. And unfortunately for us, like, we've had to have some bad things happen for us to just have that ultimate and supreme focus that's necessary to win on every down in this league.
Even Cater's interception, it looked like Ogba and Sealer were in there. What have you thought of the pass rush through 3 games, and what have you liked? What would you like to see improve?
Yeah, I think those guys are doing a tremendous job. And the thing about when you're rushing 4 is the more reps those guys get together, the more cohesion they can find, and the more they can work almost like where they don't have to necessarily talk to one another, but now they can just signal and feel what the other rusher is going to do. So I'm pleased with where we are to this point. I still think there's some plays we left out there, particularly allowing quarterbacks to get out of the pocket and extend some plays. We'll get that fixed, but have the utmost confidence in those guys and their ability and what they've done from a work standpoint to this point.
What's your assessment of the run defense so far?
Yeah, not good enough, right? They're just like our first half defense. Like, there are spells where we're pretty darn good, and then there's other times where you're like, gosh, how do we allow that to happen? Ultimately, like, there's no fingers to blame. It's just a collective effort of us just cleaning it up and making sure we're setting the edge, making sure we're building the wall on the inside with our front and our backers, and ultimately make sure we get these backs on the ground. Because the last thing we want to continue to allow offenses to do is to run the ball, particularly in the end zone, right? Let's make them throw it in. So, and right now, when we get down in the red zone, we're not making that happen. So, collectively, from a coaching standpoint and from a player standpoint, we got to do better.
Zach Sealer's sack came on the edge against the left tackle. How much have you enjoyed the versatility?
Yeah, we have some studs out there, right? Calais, you can use in that same kind of mold where you can move them all over the place. It's certainly an asset, particularly to a coordinator. And you have a bunch of smart guys that can play multiple spots. I mean, you saw that with us just in the secondary as well. We suffered some injuries. We had to go out there and play with 3 safeties, and nobody blinked, nobody batted an eye. So in those situations, it's always good to have guys that have that position flexibility.
With Calais and snaps, obviously the lopsided score the last 2 weeks probably influenced why you ended up playing fewer than half the defensive snaps in both games. In a close game, do you and Calais and Austin have a comfort level where you feel like you can use them for generally more than half of your defensive snaps as opposed to under? And I know half is an arbitrary number, but it's sort of, some measuring stick.
You always go into it with a plan. And ultimately, if it's a critical situation, you want to have your best players in the game. and we feel as if he's one of our best players. Do we have a kind of a light like rep count feel for what we want from every game? Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna be at a critical play in the fourth quarter and be like, Clash, you're at 40. Sorry, come sit down. We got to shut you down. He's not like a pitcher in the Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
He's gonna roll, and we'll be fine, and we'll take care of him throughout the week if need be.
Can he go 40 in a game though if it's a close game? Because it's been low 20s last weekend, a lopsided game.
Yeah,
Can he get to 40? Do you think at his age?
Yes.
Okay.
On that long touchdown to DK, was it just as simple as it's cover two and Javon should have had his deep half?
Yeah, that was just a breakdown in coverage, and it starts obviously with the secondary and the safety as the captain of this defense, but there were multiple miscommunications on that play, and unfortunately the results were what they were.
Being around Kader Kohu for now several months, do you have a sense of if he's better in the slot, if he's better on the boundary, where you like him more? I know he can play both.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kader is an elite nickel. He is certainly more than capable of playing on the outside. Where he flourishes, I think, is inside, where he can use his short area quickness and his toughness.
Reeve, did you get any sense of how Storm Duck and Saran Neal performed? I know they weren't out there for extended periods.
Yeah, I thought Storm, particularly as a rookie, like he did not look bright-eyed and scared out there. He went out there and did his job. I was pleased with him. Kid got hurt, came back and threw his shoulder in trying to tackle the running back. Like I was like, okay, that told me something right there, just in terms of his toughness, his attitude, and his willingness to get back out there. Saran Neal, like he's a tone setter. He's a tone setter on special teams. Ultimately, if he's out there, I have the utmost confidence in him to go out there and strap whoever he's covering and strap him down. I have the confidence in him to do that.
A general football question. The way that training camps are now with the starters getting their work in the joint practice, the youngsters play the preseason games. Has September football changed? Are you kind of feeling it out and discovering what you can do in September now?
Yeah, and I think you see that all throughout the league. There's some sloppy football being played. And that's just what I said before. Like it is an improvement league. So I talked to the guys early in the week about a rising tide raising all ships. It's not about one guy trying to get like 50% better. It's about each and every person, players and coaches included, getting incrementally better so that the team as a whole can improve.
You weren't here last year when this defense gave up 2 late touchdowns to Tennessee. But, do you have to review that film with guys, and what would you do differently?
Yeah, we gotta exercise those demons to an extent, but every year is different. This is an entirely new team. There's a bunch of us that weren't a part of that at all, but the guys that were here, we know that we want to go make it right this week. So they have a new team, new staff, new coordinators, new players. Same thing here, but those 2 logos, we know what this means.
A blown assignment or a mistake in a game, what do you teach about avoiding overcorrection as the game goes on?
Yeah, in real time, you just try to get the guys to make sure that they're trying to win through technique and fundamentals. Ultimately, we always talk about obnoxious communication, and on that particular snap, we didn't have that, and that's where the breakdowns occur. It's real easy. You see it from down to down. You can get 9, 10 guys on the same page, but it only takes one to allow that big play to happen. So for us, ultimately, the more we can get in cohesion and we're constantly just over-communicating, the less chance we allow that to happen.
Obnoxious
Communications to the point you remember. You remember the scene in Dumb and Dumber, okay? When they're like driving in the car, and he's like, "Ma," yeah, he's like, "You want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?" That was the scene I played for the guys. I'm like, that's how I want you to be. I want you to be so annoying out there communicating to the guys. It's like, shut up, please. I know, I got it. But when you want to be good, like a noisy defense is a good defense.
You literally played that?
I played that clip, yeah.
And what was the reaction when you played that?
They got it. They got the message.
I don't think any of them know Dumb and Dumber.
Well, they do now. At least one scene.
We've seen sustained greatness over Jalen Phillips the first couple of years. We've seen snippets of it. When he doesn't play as well as he wants to play, or maybe you want him to play, how often are you telling yourself in your mind, well, he's coming off Achilles? Is that a factor at all in your mind? Is he just assess him at this point?
It is absolutely a factor. And I think we all have to give him a little grace. For him to do what he's done and come back from that Achilles as fast as he did is remarkable just doing that alone. So I think he's still working himself back into just getting his timing right on how to attack these tackles. But like I said, there's nobody in this building that works harder than him. So it's only a matter of time till he gets back to where we were used to seeing him.
What are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask real quick. I know you're not a doctor, even though you might have stayed at a holiday. But from watching Bradley Chubb just do some things, do you feel like, again, not asking you for timetable, do you feel like we might see him at some point in the weeks ahead?
I truthfully have no idea. I would just be speculating up here. I see him every day. He's in all of our meetings. So he certainly gives me the feeling that we will see him at some point this year.
What are your thoughts on Will Levis and the Titans receiving core?
Yeah, Will Levis has all the ability in the world. Right now you can see he's been fighting kind of that turnover demon a little bit. But and particularly as you guys referenced the game a year ago, like it's in there. Like he's capable. So we're certainly not taking him for granted. And we're certainly not taking that receiving core for granted. They got two studs. I was with DeAndre Hopkins for a number of years there in Houston and saw everything he can do. So we got to make sure we account for him. And Ridley is incredibly talented too. And then obviously from a coordinator standpoint, he's very familiar with Boyd. So we got to account for all those guys. We are cognizant of them. We have plans on how to potentially limit their productivity. And then we're going to try to do everything we can to rattle this quarterback.
What did you see from Deshaun Hand last week, and what have you seen all season?
Yeah, Deshaun, he's just another guy that he's steady. Right, and every single time he steps on that practice field, you're going to get 100% effort out of him. So the production he's had at this point has not been a surprise. Like he was out there every day, he's put in the work, and typically when that happens, you reap the rewards for it.
Anything else?
Ethan Bonner, where is he in his development as a cornerback? I know you've got a couple injuries in that unit that's going to require.
Yeah. I feel incredibly confident if Ethan steps on that field this Monday. Sorry, I'm still, I forget it's Friday. It feels like Thursday to me. It's football Thursday, so my wife is not happy about that. But Ethan, man, like he goes out there, he's just like these other guys I've mentioned. You talk about a guy that's constantly going out and trying to fine tune and work his craft. I actually gave kudos just to all those guys that are on the show team for our offense yesterday. Like I thought they did a tremendous job. And we were talking about iron sharpening iron. Like that's what we need to do. We need to make sure we bring the effort, energy, technique, and fundamentals day in and day out. Ethan does that. And I thought our guys that aren't starters did that yesterday.
I wanted to ask about some of the big plays over the last couple of weeks, the DK pass and then the James Cook run. It seems like just visually that the guys have kind of like taken that on the chest, and then you can kind of see like the wind kind of go out the sails a little bit on the defense at that point. How do you stop that specifically from happening? Is it just drilling in the importance of communication, or what's your message to the guys like after one of those big plays happen?
Yeah, I think it goes back just to what I said earlier. It's not, we don't have to make wholesale changes, right? It's ultimately just everybody individually like watching a little bit more film, trying to work on a particular technique and fundamental that maybe they're lacking in. And if we can all just get a little bit better, those plays will stop and ultimately will make the play necessary to go out there and win the game.
I know obviously so much of game planning is about exposing weaknesses in the opponent. But with that in mind, do you and Mike feel like you generally need to get the ball in the hands of Tyreek and Jalen more than you have the last 2 weeks?
I think ultimately we're always trying to get, our guys involved, every week. I mean, their ability to make plays obviously is, the reason why we're very successful. Each week defenses present different challenges, and it's our job to make sure we're putting in the guys in the right spot to maximize the opportunities of what the defense is trying to present for us. So I think, as we're looking at it right now, there's different things that we're seeing that, we're really incorporating that into our attack. And the great thing about Tyreek and Waddle, like the rest of the guys, they just want to make sure that we're doing what's best for us to win, and whatever's necessary is what they'll do.
Tariq kind of mentioned that he's not at the point in his career where he feels he needs to demand the ball. I'm guessing, what have you seen from his demeanor or, the way he has responded in games the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's like, I think overall we're genuinely frustrated for where we're at and how we're executing as a group. But everyone's focus is on getting better and knowing that it's a long season and how you start isn't how you finish, and each week presents its own challenges. So he's been great. And, you know, in the course of a game, all the guys are competitors and they want to be part of the reason why we're successful. And I think he has been great. And like all guys, we're going back to work and working on the things that we can improve to make sure that we have a better outcome this weekend.
Frank, sticking with that theme though, I could see where you don't want guys screaming up a storm on the sideline, pouting that they're not getting the ball. On the other hand, he is Tyreek Hill. So is there something to be gained maybe by him reminding the quarterback, hey, I need the ball?
I mean, I don't necessarily know. I mean, in all forms of communication, I mean, whatever relationship it is, it's like you don't necessarily have to scream to be heard. So, I mean, however we communicate is the most important thing. But we're all aware. We all collectively want to make sure that we're doing the best things we can to make sure we're successful this weekend. So making sure that we get all our guys involved is the most important thing we're looking at each week.
Do you Huntley have like an offensive assistant or something who's been like assigned to just help him like do flashcards or so, just take me behind the scenes when you're trying to catch up real fast? Is there something unique that you do?
I think whenever guys come in that aren't with us through training camp, you know, we use our position assistants, whether it's for all positions. You know, we try and get guys up to speed, meet extra, you know, have extra walkthroughs, time throughout the week. So, I mean, not necessarily a quarterback position, but all positions. We're behind the scenes making sure that they're getting caught up with terminology or, hey, this is what we do here, this is how it's read. Sometimes things are read different for quarterbacks. But offensive linemen, you know, same thing. We bring guys up and, you know, we use our position assistants while we're focusing on the, you know, the guys that, you know, are here present for the game. But, yeah, we try and use the whole staff to make sure that we're getting guys up to speed. And then as guys move into the roster that way, it's not like you're not getting any information. We try and use our whole staff like you use, you know, like a whole team. You know, some guys are contributing in different ways, and that's how we try and make sure we use our staff appropriately.
When you have two quarterbacks that are fresh to the team, well, I mean, one has an understanding of the offense because he's been in systems that are similar, but the other one doesn't. How do you make it palatable to retain all the information, or do you have to dumb down the offense to?
I don't necessarily know if it's like you dumb down, but you always want to. You're trying to do what your players do well and put them in positions to be successful. So think that you know, all positions we're asking guys to do what they're comfortable in doing and what they understand doing, and they understand what the concept provides. So I think that comes down to when we get guys here, part of our process to make sure they understand as they're coming through it. It's not like you're here for 2 weeks and you're just kind of learning on your own. We're making sure we're always bringing the process along so guys understand. And so that way when guys are up, we're executing what we do well, and we can understand that there are different parts of our offense, different concepts we can use to attack the defense. And, you know, I think our driving force here is we always want to put our guys in positions to be successful for what they can do well.
With Huntley, in terms of his athletic ability and scrambling ability, do you have to pull out some of those RG3-esque plays that you've had in this offense for a while?
I mean, I think it's more of like each week when you're using the guys, you're going, okay, what's the defense? All right, how do they play defense? How do they try and work all three levels of it? How's the attack going to be approached, and how do we create conflict inside of it? So whenever you're looking at like the starting point is always the defense, and not necessarily like you're thinking of us. You're going, okay, who are they and how do they operate? Okay, and how can we then attack it with the guys we have? That's our starting point. So, I mean, even last year, I mean, it's been our approach our whole time here. We start with the defense, how they want to deploy and play coverage. How do they want to stop the run? How do they accept force? How do they do their different things? And then we then build from there. So that's kind of our driving force, not necessarily like, hey, we need to do this because of this. It's this. What's the defense? How do we create conflict? And that's how we build.
Right. A quarterback question regarding history versus recency, and as it applies specifically to Skyler, but also to Snoop and Tim Boyle. Skyler, you've seen 2 years worth of work. He had maybe 3 bad quarters, whatever you want to say. How do you balance that and in the final judgment of Skyler and moving forward, whether he should get another start? And then also with Snoop and Tim Boyle, you know their history, but you also know their recency here. What weighs more heavily in the decision on who plays or who starts?
I think we take everything in from a collective approach. It's easy to say poor result, then therefore it is. It's why. So it's a deeper reason to things. So we're trying to I always look at, my knee hurts. Okay. So what's wrong? Well, ice and stim, and maybe it'll go away. Take some pain pills, and maybe it'll go away. Okay, maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Okay, and then you really still hurts. All right, so now you get looking at it, and the doctor says you need to do something deeper, and then therefore that's the answer you need to go. So for us, we're looking at, okay, where are some of the things we've been doing? Why are we having poor performance for not getting the result we want? Okay, well, is it a player? Is it a group? Is it all of us? And ultimately, it comes down to all of us executing together for that. But when you look at, quarterbacks always get, the magnifying glass, it is or it isn't. However, I think we can do better as an offense in general to allow for us to, really ace a lot of decisions. Because right now it's with the eliminating penalties, eliminating things that we can really improve. I think overall that'll help us as an offense, not just saying, hey, it's this or not. It's a lot of things that we need to correct right now.
First possession down there, sorry Dave, on the after Cater's interception, first down, it looked like Achane had a hole that he just slipped. I know Julian Hill had the penalty, but looked like he had a hole that would have scored. What does that tell you about the offense? And then I don't think Jonnu Smith was in for that possession. Is there anything you can tell us about that also?
I think it's it's maximizing opportunities. When it's early in the season, so it's easy to go. When you're having success, you can say, hey, like last year, at this point in the season, it was, what could we do wrong? It didn't seem like many things. But now this season, hey, what are you doing right? Well, it's never as good as it seems or as bad as it seems. It's somewhere in the middle. And normally when you're talking about execution, it's a play here, play there, a guy here, a guy there, just that cohesiveness being connected and making sure that we're all executing at the same time. And I think that's the ultimate thing we're talking about is our collective execution, making sure that we're working together, right? So, and not trying to, do too much at the moment. It's play the play, know what the attack is, what's the defense you're facing, and how, and then your preparation kicks into play. So, yeah, it's just when we have moments where we're not executing, okay, what is it? How do we fix it? Okay, what was the issue? And then we go through it, and then and just making sure we're asking the guys to do things that we do well.
Especially when you have a backup quarterback, and when it comes to communicating play calls to that quarterback in a timely fashion, and maybe this is more of a Mike question, what have you guys found are some of the consistencies or inconsistencies and why that isn't occurring sometimes, and maybe ways to streamline that process?
Well, the challenge when you're playing on the road, obviously, is, the noise, and there's factors of communication where you have to make sure you're hearing through the communicator what's being said, and that creates a challenge. And then it's just making sure that we're all hearing each other. The greatest issue that always occurs is we all have in all facets of our life is are you really listening? Are you listening or are you hearing the person? You got to make sure that you're getting the information necessary and also delivering the information necessary. So just making sure our communication, we understand what's being said, and then all we're working together. It's not one person, it's a unit. So all offensive players making sure that we're hearing the concept, we understand what's being executed. you don't assume. You hear one thing, you make sure you get it heard and communicated with each other. So I think that's just been an issue that we've been having, and it's something we've been working on this week, and we're looking forward to improving on it for Monday night.
Right, there were two, I guess, phantom whistles out there. One on a first down that puts you behind the chains, the HM run, second and 11, and then on the third down, you end up punting. I talked to the players about this yesterday. One player said he thought maybe there was a whistle in the stands, but is this something that you guys send to the league and say, let's get this straightened out, or do you just kind of say, it happened, it's done, there's nothing the league can do about it?
It's just making sure procedural issues, we communicate with the league, but yeah, it was a bad deal. So it's just knowing that when the ball's being held, like when they said it, the whistle came in late, so it was kind of came at a time where they're like, what was that? So
You gotta stop playing.
yeah, because they set the ball and hit it, and then they blew it like just a little bit later than normal. So, but I mean, it's just stuff that's like, when you look at the course of a game, one play here, it's like, okay, when adversity hits, you can either use it as an excuse, or you got to go like, okay, let's get back on schedule. So I think ultimately this year is like, hey, we've had some adversity. Let's learn from it. Let's not run from it, and let's know that how we can get better as a group, because we got a long year ahead of us.
Is there an added level of difficulty, or does it compound things when you fall behind a couple of scores with your backup and you're on the road in a hostile environment? Like, what does that do to the psyche or the adjustment process when something like that happens?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that it helps remind you to stay, really deliberate in your approach. Be in the moment. The past doesn't dictate the future, and there's nothing certain except that right now, all right, when things aren't going well, okay, how can I affect it? It's not I need to do anything extraordinary. It's more of like, okay, what's the play? What's the execution? What do I need to do to be successful? So it's ultimately, like for us right now, is just making sure that we're all connected on the same page. We're having the communication necessary, and whether it's good or it's bad, it's being in the moment, playing the moment. Because like last year, go game 3, what didn't go right? You score 70, like life is good. All right, now the other side of the coin, it's now, okay, whether it's going well, you have prosperity or adversity, it's irrelevant. Like right now is the most important thing, is the moment. And that's the thing that we're working on right now, is making sure we're maximizing this moment today and all moments in our preparation for Monday.
This is probably a question not only for you, but for Mike as well. But with regard to your special teams unit, is there a point at which where if one person commits multiple penalties, you believe in repercussions in terms of yanking him off your special teams unit during that particular game, or is that simply not feasible because of the number of bodies you have?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. What are the penalties? That's the first thing. There's many different types of penalties, and you don't like any penalty because it's gonna hurt the club. But there's certain penalties which I call in the course of the game aggressive, not dumb, that are to the decision of the officials. That they're going to call some of them. They're going to call some of them correctly, some of them incorrectly. But an aggressive penalty in the course of the game, working the right technique, I'm not happy with them, but I can accept those. The ones that you don't like are the pre-snap and post-snap penalties. Those are the ones that if they get egregious by anybody, those are things that you're going to have a major issue with.
And the Walker penalty seemed to fall in that second category. So are you upset with that? What's your
Again, I'm not going to identify and talk about one single penalty. That's just the philosophy that we have is, they're going to go in different buckets, and then you're going to, account for them based on what those things are.
Danny, in that same line of questioning though, there have been 5 illegal formation penalties, moving too early on the kickoff in the first 3 games. Beyond reinforcing it or making a player switch, what can you do to get that?
Well, again, and this is something that we talked about going into the season. You get veteran players who are used to playing, the game a certain way, and for 6 or 7 years, the ball is kicked off, and you're a kickoff return player, and you're so ingrained of having to get your depth and your width and whatever your drop zone is, you're retraining the brain to the ball is kicked, I can't move. So you have 6 or 7 years of training on doing something, you got to remind yourself, and we have to remind them on the sideline, hey, we're not moving until the ball is caught or hits the ground. But like I said, for years and years, guys have been trained to play the game a different way. And with the new rules, you got to adapt, and we got to adapt quicker.
Danny, a question of just trying to understand what you guys are doing. The opening kickoff, Tanner Connor slips. Looks like he could have made the play. Did he have contain on that, or was that Elijah uncontained?
I'm not going to get into the specifics. We didn't execute the play. We had people in what we thought were going to be positioned to make a play, and we weren't able to execute. We got to be better and stay on our feet and be able to execute a little bit better. But I thought for the most part, the guys did a good job when the ball was in play on Sunday. What we got to clean up is before the ball is in play and after the ball is in play.
Tanner seemed to have a good game special teams wise. He made the tackle on the next play. He might have had a key block for Braxton's punt return. I think maybe him and Durham. But anyway, how did Tanner play overall special teams?
He played well. He's again a transition player from positions. From where he was and healthy now, which has been a little bit of an issue and a concern, but we feel like he's a talented player that really can give us some things in the kicking game.
Chop seemed to get in close to another punt. Talk about his progression on special teams.
Again, he's a talented guy who we're going to keep trying to find ways to use him, and like anything, I got to do a better job when we're in those positions to make a play. We got to be able to finish those plays.
Jason's 57-yard field goal attempt looked like somebody came in off of his left. Is there any chance that nothing that didn't affect?
Zero. Had nothing to do with it.
All right. 50-yard field goals. Just league wide.
You're on a run right now.
I know. I've got
Oh my God.
Everybody plays a role.
I was gonna say, you divvy it up.
pretty
Yeah, press conference.
I gave them their chances earlier.
We're grateful, Chris.
Yes. League wide, the field goals that are 50 or more, 76.5%. Last year was 68.7%. Is there a trend of kickers getting stronger legs, or is this kind of an anomaly? It'll even out to where it's been.
I think it's a lot. Number one, I think the kickers in the National Football League are very, very, very talented guys, and so those numbers rising, that doesn't surprise me. I expect that everybody is like us. Those, mid to short 50-yard field goals. The game has changed. You're not thinking about those the way you maybe did 20 years ago. But it's a week-to-week thing. I think if you guys look, a week ago, I think around the league, that was over 90% on 50-yard field goals, and then this week it's less than 50. So, you don't know. I know. I look at us and I look at how we approach it, and when we send Jason out, we feel good about getting points.
Last thing from me, just a general.
For the group, you're speaking for the group.
Right. Yes, and on behalf of readers. Just in general, your football knowledge. It seems like September is different now with the veterans doing the joint practices and not preseason games. Has September football changed? Is it almost a little more experimental in your mind than it was a few years ago?
I don't think it's experimental, but I think what you're seeing is maybe, some of the first heavy opportunities of play time aren't happening now until games matter. So it's something that's around the league. And it's an interesting and something I think everybody's going to look at going forward, because when the games matter, they matter.
Tough to follow up what Purchase did, and I only have one here on Braxton's long punt return. Outside of the obvious, is there something that wasn't maybe not so obvious that you can tell us that helps bring him?
Well, I think number one, we did a good job early on the gunners. If you want to get opportunities in the return game and punt return game particularly, you got to make sure the gunners aren't down in your face. We talk about it conversely as when we talk about punting the ball. You got to be good at the gunner position, and if you can control those guys at least to get started, then the other aspects go into it. So I think we did a good job both outside on the gunners, and I think they did a good job on the inside and creating that space, and I thought Braxton did a good job of hitting it.
With Saran having a hamstring injury, obviously he's a huge player in your phase, how difficult is it to replace a gunner like that?
Well, it's always just difficult to replace good players. I don't care, and you guys know that offensively, defensively, kicking game. You have certain guys, but we'll let the trainers do their job. They do an outstanding job. We had, Elijah a couple weeks ago that was banged up, and they were able to get him ready. So we'll put a little bit of faith in the trainers and the doctors. But good players are good players, and you don't just have another one.
Where is Ethan in special teams phase?
Yeah, he's doing a good job. It's a matter of time, and everybody's going to get opportunity. That's the way the league is now. So when his opportunity comes, I expect him to do a good job, just like he did last season when we elevated him and brought him up from the practice squad. This year, he's already on the roster. So when he gets his opportunity, he'll be ready to play.
What is impressive about the career of Nick Folk, who's still kicking it as he's going to turn 40 this year?
He's done a great job. He's really done a great job. Like all good veterans, he understands himself and understands what he has to do and adapted his game to play to his strengths and minimize, some of the things like every veteran player, you're going to lose certain skills and attributes. You got to find other skills and attributes to accentuate what are your strength to stick around in this league. So, I think Nick's an outstanding kicker, and been a pleasure to get to know him over the years.
Danny, I think there was a field goal attempt by Seattle where you guys maybe overloaded the kicker's left side and seemed to do pretty well. What do you do? Do you just file that stuff away? Yeah, that we got good results. What do you do with those plays going forward?
Well, it's a lot of things. It's personnel. It's our personnel, their personnel. Then you get into the elements of where and how you want to attack people. So there's a lot of moving parts. But again, it comes down to players and trying to put players in position to make plays.
Now that you've studied kickoffs for 3 weeks, not necessarily a month, is there any common theme in terms of what teams are trying to do?
It's really there's a couple of different buckets that you're starting to see develop. So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward, not looking forward, but the bye week, and I'm glad it's an early bye week this year to be able to get on a lot of more in-depth studies at that point of the season where you have a little bit more time, where it's not 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks into the season where most of the season is gone before you get to spend a lot of time really diving into that. So anxious to really take a couple even harder look at it here in a couple weeks.
Has the quality of run defense that you've gotten when you play a nose tackle declined this year from a year ago, A, and B, has it been good enough?
Well, we gave up 233 yards the first game last year, so I'd say it's been a little better numerically. But look, I think we've given up some explosives, and I don't think it's just on having a nose tackler. Like, we have nose tackles, so I don't know too much about that. But, the explosives that we're giving up is something we got to cut that out, And I think last week you saw for 3 quarters about how we want to play the run. And when you do that, you play the run good, you get a lot of third down ops. I think we had 11 third and 5 pluses or something like that. So then you get the chance to pass rush, and stopping a run and earning the right to rush is something that we're focused on. We hope that improves each week, and the guys are working their ass off.
Yeah, I guess my question was more along the lines of, is Raekwon's size missed when you play a 3-man front? Put Wilkins and Zach's side. Obviously, Zach's still with you. But is Raekwon's size and production missed, do you think, at all?
No, I believe in the guys we have, man. I really do. And I think, schematically we're doing some different things and stuff like that. And I think, credit to Coach Weaver. He makes great adjustments, And I think that we believe in the players we have. They're playing their ass off. And I think the biggest thing, if you're looking for one thing to hang your hat on in run defense, is pad leverage. That typically early in the year is one thing, but that's got to be better. And that's on me. Pad leverage and eye discipline in the run game has got to improve.
Sounds like you're confident in improvement to come based on, you mentioned last year, 233 in the first game. We saw an improvement after that. You're feeling this will be maybe a similar track?
Absolutely. That's what we want to have. You got to stop the run in this league to earn the right to rush the passer, which is what all these guys love doing, what we love doing, getting off the field on third down, getting the ball back to the offense. And that's what we're focused on, man, is development here. And that's in schematics and in the areas we need to get better at. And then as players, too, the things they're not as great at. And then watching guys develop over time. That's what this program's been built on since I've been here, and that's what we're focused on doing.
Austin, you seeing anything different from Zach Sealer this season?
Yeah, every day he gets better. I love Zach Sealer. Love his process. Love what he's about. I think the biggest thing for him is like he's in such great shape, and that's a guy that practices every day. I know you guys were out there in fall camp. Like there's no vet rest days. This guy loves football. Prepares his ass off, and I think his football IQ and knowledge, like with different offenses we're playing, and his ability to adapt in different schemes has impressed me this year. Obviously he was in Baltimore a little bit, so he had some background with what we're doing. But Zach's unbelievable, and his process is really what stands out in the way he plays.
Sorry, quick follow-up if I may. You've been with him for a while. Are you surprised at how much he's developed through the years?
I'm not, man. I'm really not, because a lot of people, when you talk about Zach, they say like, oh, he's such a great effort player, and there's like all these comparisons to different guys that come up. But what I'll tell you is this guy's 6'6", 6'7". He's 305 pounds. Like you couldn't draw him up any better for how you want a guy to look that's playing 3 technique, 4-eye, close side DN. So he has all the traits and intangibles. And I really, from working with him years ago, you kind of saw it get better every day. And when you got a guy that just, prepares his ass off, works hard, he's in the weight room, he stays after practice, he cares about doing his job as much as he cares about making plays. You know what I mean? He's a selfless guy. Like he's not going to shed out of his gap and let the ball run through his gap. Like that's not that guy. If his job's to pick on a game, he's going to pick instead of, maybe potentially bust and contain by winning or something like that. You know what I mean? And then it's a credit to Zach.
I want to ask you, you said comparisons. You've heard them. I've never heard comparison for Zach. What are they?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like, look, to be frank with you, it's like every time there's like, it's natural because like every time you see like a 6'4" white D tackle, it's like a Zach Allen. That's one. Okay, those are like similar comparison there. But anytime you see like a college guy coming up, it's like, oh, this guy's kind of like Sealer. Like, oh, pump the brakes. Sealer's 6'6", 305, and he works his tail off. And we never let him forget. He was a D2 walk-on. We try to humble him a little bit here and there. But absolutely, his wife actually was a scholarship basketball player at Bama. So I like to tell him she was the real athlete in the family. But a great guy, and the one thing I should tell you guys, man, is he's a captain this year. And that's a big thing. This guy's worked his tail off, and he's earned that. He's earned that. And he's a guy like Calais, I think, has helped his leadership over time. A guy that's been a captain a bunch of different places, has a process in how he approaches things, and those two have been great.
Austin, is there any carryover from Tennessee's the game last year regarding their offensive line and Will Levis that you can apply to this week's game?
Yeah, they invested a lot in their offensive line since we played them. So you got the new tackle, brought in Cushenberry from Denver. So in terms of like their exact offensive line, I don't think as much. Skronsky was a rookie. That guy's come a long way. Very good player, good run blocker, developing as a pass protector. And then the right tackle, the one guy, Duncan, played a little bit against us, but you could look at Levis and, he torched us in the second half. And I know this, I didn't forget about that. And I think he's a great quarterback. We got to stop the run. They got a great offense. And so in terms of carryover, nothing schematically, but if you're looking at the players or something like that.
How much do you guys harp on that, the fact that Tennessee really just spoiled your season last year?
Yeah, I don't think it's much harp on it, but it's just something in the back of your mind, I mean, we're not underestimating anybody. And it was a credit to them. They played a great game, and we got to get better.
Deshaun Hand seemed to step up last week. Did he step up, or is that what he's been doing all season?
Yeah, and I don't think it's as much for D-Hand like all season, but he's a guy that he's a strong. He might be the strongest guy in our room, to be honest with you. And, he came in on the practice squad last year, and just worked his tail off every day. And that's who that guy is. He's tough as nails, plays hard, believes in playing the run. And it was cool to see him get some pass rush production. And that is kind of how he's been. I thought he had a good preseason. He's a guy that played in a lot of games in the preseason. I think that's helped him thus far.
Tell me about his personality. I don't talk to him much, but he seems to have a good outgoing personality, quick to smile, and tell me about his personality.
Yeah, great personality. Very, very smart too. I'll tell you that. You probably got to get to know him a little bit. He's got some pipes on him. I told him the other day he walked in with his shirt off. I'm like, this guy's yoked up, man. You just forget about it, every day. But I'm proud of that guy, man. I really am. And it's not about what our players are doing right now. It's week 3 going into week 4. We want to see these guys get better every single week, and that's what we're chasing.
What have you learned about Calais Campbell through this early part of the season that maybe you didn't know when he first came here?
Total pro. I mean, hopefully I'm fortunate enough to coach for a long time. I don't know if I'll ever be lucky enough to coach a player like him again at this stage in his career. He's a total pro. He is what you think he is. He's a person. Walter Payton Man of the Year. Works his tail off, and it's just impressive. His process, how he prepares, and how he gets his body ready to go out there and do what he does, man. It's unbelievable, and we're sure lucky to have him.
What's been the message to the guys after those explosive plays?
The biggest thing, like when it happens, if you're asking in game, is you got to find out who's the culprit. Whenever you give up an explosive that long, it's usually not more than one person that did something wrong. So were we at a gap? Were we aligned properly? And those things, that's where you start, And you try to knock it out quick because in this league, it's a copycat league. If you give up that explosive, you're going to see that run the next series, whatever that may be, run, pass. And then you're also going to see it the following week. And then the following week after that. Because, offenses look at the explosive plays you've given up, and it's a copycat league.
What does Tyler Snoop Huntley, in the brief time you know him and the video you've watched, what does he do well?
I've been excited about Snoop and getting here just in terms of the process that he's gone through. I mean, it's not an easy task to learn an offense that's really this verbose. I think plays are plays, but there's the way you call them and things that we do. He's really come in and just kind of sunk his teeth into it. Worked really hard at gaining the knowledge that he needs to have to be able to go out there on the field. He's done a nice job for himself. Obviously, I think all you guys know the skill sets that he has. I was able to watch him obviously in the time that we were thinking about bringing him in. I really liked what he did as a passer. I think it was a little bit underrated in some of the things that he can do as a passer, because I think all the stuff that's talked about all the times is things that he can do with his legs, and which is exciting to have. But I was really excited what he could do as a thrower.
Darrell, when it comes to Skyler's performance and whether he deserves another shot at starting, do you look more at history or recency?
No, I think you take in the full body of work. We've had Skyler since day one. I think you guys can remember back to the young rookie that started in a playoff game and did really well for himself in that game. And he's which was a hostile environment, some tough atmospheres. He's been through a great battle here in training camp with Mike White, and those two really went at it, and he competed hard. So he deserves opportunities when he's able to get them. Unfortunately, he ended up getting hurt in that game, and that's going to set him back a little bit. He's still working through this week to see where he can get it to. But there's a lot obviously that goes into that. How much does that change his reps, and does that rep count affect if he would be able to play and be effective? So he's going to continue to work at it, but you really take in the full body of work.
Bev, what did you like and not like from Skyler's work on Sunday?
I think obviously Seattle is an underrated place probably not underrated. I mean, I've had a lot of experience with it and tried to communicate, but it was really loud. There was a lot of chaos that was going on in the game, and some of that was by the way the game was being managed in a lot of different ways. Not to put anybody's names on it, so just handling all that, I thought he did a really good job of that. There was a couple times he let the ball rip, but then as he'll tell you, there was a couple times that he should have let it go in a couple other opportunities. So there was still some plays to be made, and those are why we continue to get back in the lab and go evaluate it, and then go back out and practice it and try to get better.
How difficult is it to efficiently operate your offense when the quarterback isn't throwing the ball on schedule?
Well, I mean, that's the basis of our offense. Our offense is a very elite timing offense. You'll see us put our foot in the ground and let it go quicker than most other teams in the league. Tua is very elite at that, and it's something that we ask of all our quarterbacks. So that timing is super important.
Do you think there were issues with him trusting what he saw? You mentioned timing and how important that is. Was it just not trusting what he saw first read and holding onto the ball longer?
Yeah, I think I think there is times that does affect you. And yeah, there was a few opportunities that he had a chance to let it rip, and he'll be the first one to tell you. He's hard on himself, and he'll be the first one to tell you that he should have let some of them go.
Darrell, what's been your exchanges with Tua? Anything you're able to share in terms of, is he feeling well? Does he seem eager to get back out and play again?
Well, I love what Tua's approach. Obviously, he's going through the process, but he's here really every day. He's excited. He's eager. He's trying to lead in his own way, and it's different when you're not on the field to be that leader. But he's leading. He's really helped out all the quarterbacks. I mean, Skyler and Tim and Snoop. So he's being as helpful as he can there. But as far as all the other stuff, I'll let Tua speak for himself.
We have a general football question drawing on your knowledge. It seems like the game has changed to where September is almost more exploratory because of the vets do the joint practices and the young players do the preseason games. Do you find that accurate, that September football has kind of changed over the years, and does that affect quarterback play a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I do think it's changed with the way that it's been approached over the years. I mean, back when I first got in the league, there was obviously more games. There was more times where the vets or your first team would play. So some of the continuity, I think, that's being right now that you're kind of trying to shake out in the early part of September may have already happened in some of the preseason games. So football's not quite as clean. I still think there's a little bit more mistakes. There's still some timing things that are going on that probably a few years ago might not have happened.
When you don't have a lot of time with a quarterback who might have to play. It was Tim last week, could be Snoop this week or Tim. What do you personally, as that position coach, try to focus on the most in the limited time?
Well, the good thing is that the game plans or that we're in game plan weeks. It's different than training camp, because training camp you really throwing the whole thing at them. You got the whole encyclopedia. So these guys, the two guys, Tim and Snoop, both of them are veteran players, so they have a little bit of background of information that they can draw on. So specifically during a game week, they're able to draw on just a more limited number of plays, and although it's still big, it's definitely limited. So you're able to focus in just focus in a little bit more on the details and the things that you need for those specific plays, rather than teaching concepts and big parts of your offense. So the things that we have to do for us, number one, and I'm glad you mentioned Tim, just in terms of he hasn't been here long either. So we have timing offense with motions. So those are one of the things that you have to kind of get dialed in. The footwork, I think, is very critical. Tim's been in some similar system where Snoop hasn't quite been in. He's been at Baltimore the whole time and not quite the same timing that we use. So timing, motions, footwork, those are the things that we really try to dial into immediately.
I know it's important to get the ball to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle in this offense. Is it more important to get them the ball downfield, or you just want to get the ball in their hands when you get it to them?
Well, I think the defense dictates some of where you can get them the ball, but we definitely want to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. Whether it's underneath and it's ends up being catch and run, you're going to find your opportunities. Try to get behind a defense as much as you can, and we'll take those shots as well. But whether it's Jalen, Tyreek, Achane, Jonnu, we have a number of guys that we can use to get the ball to. And you're just trying to get it to him in space with space.
As you watched Tyler's Baltimore tape, I know you just mentioned he liked some things he did as a passer. What specifically? Was it touch? Was it something else that stood out, Darrell?
Well, I think you just immediately think that he's a runner, as that's kind of the part that I had. And so just to be able to see him throw down in and down out, and to be able to see him throw accurately, see him to throw, he is willing to throw it on time. Like, those are the things that you kind of look for. You have to, as you watch it, you have to kind of say, okay, what was what's the play designed for? How are they trying to make him go through progressions here? Can he do that? Can he let it go on time? Does he anticipate? Does he have to see it open? And we liked what we saw.
How tough is it to teach quarterbacks that element of untimed throws in this offense? I mean, I don't know how you quantify that,
Yeah.
but how difficult is that?
It can be difficult. I think it just depends on some of their background and what they've done up to that point, and then there's just times where you get into practice or get into routes and you just continue to harp on it, like, hey, your back foot hit, let it go. Sometimes I don't know if you guys are close enough to be able to hear, but I'll be saying, let it go, because they have to see it, number one. So the vision has to be there to do it. But then the brain's got to be able to tell, I see it open, I got to let it go. And I think you can kind of get that timing if you continue to work on it.
Do you like to ask a quarterback, like on a football Thursday or Friday, like, hey, what are your top three that you really like right now? Is that a thing you do?
Oh, for sure. And we do it. We will do it probably more toward the end of the week. Once they've had a number of reps, and Coach Mike will do that a lot with them, because particularly now, with these guys that don't have as much, aren't as deep into the playbook. So all right, what are you familiar with? And we kind of start there. And then let them select, because I've had these experiences before where the coach can say, this is a great play, and the quarterback's like, I don't know, and you're like, no, it's a great play, and you call it, and it doesn't work very well. And you can have it exactly the opposite, where the quarterback's, I love this play, and the coach is like, there's no way this play is working, like they do this, they do that, and you can talk, but the quarterback has a feel for it, and those are the plays that work. So I think it's important to listen to those guys and listen to what they like, and then try to figure out a little bit, like, do I call that? Do I don't? But it is important to get that feedback.
Going back to Rika and Waddle, I think last week they combined for the least amount of yards since their arrival. How much of that is just the timing being off? How much of that is just the route combination? What do you attribute that lack of?
I think it's all of it. I think the defense has done a good job in what they've been doing to limit just explosive plays. And then number two, as I said last week, there was other opportunities to get them the ball. We have to be able to let the ball go in the timing of the offense. And then for their part, then they got to make sure that they're where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. And there was opportunities of that last week, and we got to let it go and give it to them.